So, like, this maybe you're okay. All right. So that's good, but that's okay. Yeah. I'd rather that. Yeah. I mean, I did just finish. I wasn't just like, I did this last minute. I was in the ground. That was good. Really? That's really cool. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm like friends in high school.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. She's older than you.
I was in other stuff. I consider joining, but
Yeah.
yeah. I'm sure
Is there a senior Jason? Okay. Oh, no, I don't have, but I meant oh. Yeah, this is education. Thank you. I am elementary ed with students. Important phrase. Yeah. Actually, one of those focus ones, I have to get all white. Well, I did well. With the late register, and I taught. He's like 12. I died.
Yeah. Well, she had 2 classes.
My sister came.
what is it? And then my brother was the party, so they went to Canada. Yeah.
Well, hello, everyone. Well, I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for your tolerance of us not having class that first week. And so we was doing some speaking engagements and things got in the way. So thank you so much for your tolerance, and we'll get started. Good to see you. Good that you made it into the class. Yes.
Oh, I'm a twin, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. I feel like an idiot. So.
Yeah, I know. You probably.
Yeah, I did think you were sorry. I apologize. So.
That's fine.
Anybody else feel comfortable? So we'll start class the way I hope that we will every class period, and I will start. But I hope that as we move forward, you'll feel compelled to start class very much the same way as I'm going to right now. All right. So, Heavenly Father, we come to you as humbly and sincerely as we know how, Lord. We thank you for this opportunity to be in a place where we can talk about you, that we can explore what you want us to explore. Lord, we ask that as we come together today, that there is something that pricks our hearts, that asks, how can we learn more about you? And Lord, as we're teachers in these classrooms, Lord, as we're working with people, we ask that your light, that the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable not only in your sight, but place people in a position to ask more about you. And that they see in everything that we do, and everything that we say, and everything that we don't say, and everything that we don't do, that they see you in us. And we thank you for this opportunity. Please bless us and keep us in your holy and righteous name. In Jesus' name, amen. So, did anybody watch any of those videos about me when I was talking to the camera and all that kind of stuff? Okay, cool. So, do you have a good sense of the kind of what my take is on a lot of this stuff? Do you have a good sense of that? Pretty much, so sort of. Okay, cool. So why did you, so first of all, what do you guys think about John Green, the Crash Course guy?
Quirky.
Yeah, he's quirky. Yeah, I love that dude. I think it's awesome, right? I'm like, how do you take these really serious topics, but like make them fun, but not disrespect them, right? I mean, so he does this really interesting thing. It would be great to see him on one of those late night shows or something. I think the guy is awesome. So specifically, what were some of your impressions of those videos? Or what? No, let's back up. Why do you think I would have you watch those videos in my absence? Like, why do you think I would have you do that? Yes,
I think that kind of to get context for the course, like for where we are in history, like just, I mean, it was very summarized, but like give the summary of like what is leading to the context we find ourselves in today,
Yeah,
and like why things are the way they are.
yeah, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Filling in the gaps we may have.
Okay. Did anyone else feel like you had some gaps, or he was giving some information? You're like, I've never heard this before, or how did I miss this? Right? Yeah, I certainly did. I was like, wow, I didn't know this. Other reasons. Why have you watch those videos in my absence? So what's the relevance, right? So you had gaps in what you know, and so why would I even be interested in making sure that you fill those gaps? Why is that important?
Talking about diversity in the United States, we need to know the history.
Okay, so we need to know the history of the people of the United States itself, particularly when we talk about this idea of diversity and whatnot. Why else? What else?
Probably because that has a lot to do with what we're going to be talking about in this class.
Yeah.
Just to kind of, I don't know, we'll hear a lot of things from you, but then you give a background of like more sources and more ways to see an idea or a topic.
Yeah. Context is everything. It's everything. So if we don't have a good sense of what our contextual place in the universe is, then we find ourselves lost. Okay? Parents are important because they give us the context. Whether parents, you were born to a set of parents, whether you were grafted to a set of parents, whether you were adopted by a set of parents, their primary objective is to give you what? A context by which you see yourself and which you see the world. All right? So we're going to talk a lot about this idea of context, because I believe that context and culture are inseparable, that they're tied together. And when we start talking about this idea of equity, educational equity, it's also tied to some other things. Because we're striving for equity because in a lot of ways it hasn't been granted folks. They haven't had the opportunity to experience this kind of equity. And we'll talk about what is equity. What are we talking about when we talk about equity? And we'll spend some time doing that. So before I go into the notes, I do want to say that your syllabus will be in Moodle. So you can go there and look at the course outline and schedule in Moodle. There were a couple of things when I uploaded Moodle that were some defaults. So it says we don't have class on some days that we actually do have class. So I corrected all of that in Moodle so you can see that. So those days are clearly marked there. I have to, we'll talk about the Z-tag in just a second. How many people need a Z-tag? All right. How many people don't need a Z-tag? And how many people have already have done a Z-tag? Okay, cool. So for those of you who have taken or done a Z-tag, can you explain what a Z-tag is?
basically it's volunteer hours, they want to do like 30 hours. I did it, I was taught the Awana program on Wednesday nights for parent students.
Okay. A WANA program?
Awana,
What is WANA?
Awana is like a Bible school kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, on Wednesday nights. And so, yeah, I taught a group of like second grade girls. And I made time commitment every Wednesday night to like go and learn from them and also teach them.
Okay. So someone else who also has completed a Z-Tag. Yes, ma'am.
I taught at Rondo Outreach Library in Frogtown. And it was a little bit less structured because you would have like a second grade student needing reading help. And then you'd be teaching like trig like within half an hour. So it was more of a shock to me than I thought. Like, 'cause I kind of know that area, but I didn't know how many students like basically like took care of themselves in that area. Like most of my students would like walk like 2, 3, almost 5 blocks to like get student help. So that's kind of a culture shock.
Yeah. Because what do people say about, not you, but people in general say about so-called poor people or people in these bad neighborhoods around education? What's the mythos that people typically say?
That they're not very like committed to their education and they're not doing like all like the work that they should.
And what did you find for yourself?
They're actually more committed to learning than I was. Like I figured like that they were like my mom's in education, so I felt that I was pretty committed to learning, but they were like would be there for like 4 hours a night, like working on like one topic.
Walking 5, 6, 7, 8 blocks to get there. Yeah. Who else has done a Z-Tag? Yes, ma'am.
I kind of had a similar experience. I volunteered for my Z-Tag at the Somali Adult Literacy Training.
Yeah.
So they actually had us do like in-house tutoring. So we went, we were welcomed into the apartment of 2 Somali high schoolers, and me and a friend I was doing it with, we tutored them for a night every week. And they had only been in the States for about a year, so they're still learning English, and they're just progressed into the normal their grade level, but they're really struggling, especially with the language arts classes and stuff. But it's just, I recognized how important it was to form a relationship and just that trust and confidentiality, so they'd be comfortable like talking and practicing or making errors around me. And yeah, it's an incredible experience.
All right. Great. Other folks? Yes, ma'am.
When I started, I believe I earned my Z-Tag. I volunteered at an art studio working with adults with disabilities.
Sweet. Working with adults with disabilities, working with play. Okay. Great. So I had some kind of, anybody else want to talk about their Z-Tag? Because I wanted you guys to share the kinds of things that people can participate in. You'll find some resources on Moodle for AVID programs, which are these programs mostly in, for us, AVID's going to serve best, being in northern suburbs, right? So Roseville, Fridley, Blaine, Mounds View, because it's pretty close to campus, right? How many folks drive or have access to a car? All right, cool. And how many folks can drive a campus vehicle? So, okay, cool. The reason I ask that is that there may be some activities that we do off campus, and so I want to make sure that everybody has access to get off campus, because it's unfair to have a thing off campus and not everybody can be a part of it. So, so good. So we have some resources, and I think there's a new training coming up for driver awareness. I just got an email, that kind of thing.
Wednesday at 4:15.
So she's like on it. Are you a part of that training or?
No, not really. I just looked at Moodle, so I saw that on there.
Okay. Yep. So so Wednesday at 4:15. If you guys would mind trying to figure out if that works with your schedule, it's in Moodle. If it works for your schedule, just to double check to make sure that you can drive a school vehicle. Or if you've already had that, that's cool too. So there'll be activities that, like Avid, which is a tutoring program that we can be a part of. The key though, with your Z-Tag is that it's something that is outside of your comfort zone. And secondly, is with a cultural group outside of your own. All right. So those are the two pieces. And so I'll pass out the expectations for that Z-Tag right now. And the reason I'm talking about that before we even get to the syllabus and all that stuff is because this 30-hour piece can be pretty intensive. And so for those who have completed the Z-Tag already, we will be looking at community learning events. And community learning events are in your syllabus. All right, so let's just look at the Z-Tag. Cultural experience, description: students must have a significant off-campus cross-cultural experience. This requirement can be met either by a class designated with the Z-Tag or participating in an approved non-accredited experience. Guided pre-experience process, when possible. The experience process with faculty supervision are essential to the accomplishment of all outcomes. So basically, these are all of the options that are available, and the General Education Committee can blah, 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 blah. The non-credit option on the back. So cross-cultural experience option may take a variety of forms. Appropriate faculty supervision is required, and the non-credit cross-cultural experience form must be completed. On this form, the student must obtain signatures from the sponsoring faculty member, the student academic advisor, the General Education Committee, so forth and so on. The non-credit stuff includes like mission trips and that kind of stuff. That won't meet our requirements for this course. So something that you're going to do in the future, obviously I can't accept as something that we're doing as a Z-Tag. The other part of the Z-Tag that's important is recognizing that we'll need some documentation. So on Moodle, I'll also have a timesheet that you can document your Z-Tag experiences with and for. So I did this in interim. They had to get 25 hours in 3 weeks of time. So we have 12 weeks of time. So I think we might be able to get our 30 hours given that time, which means that we have to start sooner rather than later. For those people who have already had a Z-Tag, we're looking at doing the similar process with cultural learning events. All right, so that's how they'll show up for those people who don't need a Z-Tag.
So will those be like, are we expected to get, if we have a Z-Tag, are we expected to get 30 hours in of those specific events? Are they like designated or like how?
They're not designated events. They are events that you are to seek out. I'm supposed to provide you with resources, and you seek out those learning events yourself. So for example, one learning event could be, and I'd like for us to try to figure out how to go as a class. So Friday nights at the Science Museum, it's $5 a person. Normally, I think it's $12 a person when it's not Friday night. And there's an exhibit called the Race Exhibit. that I think, has anyone been to that already? Okay, great. Dude, what did you guys think of it?
I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, what was cool about it?
Well, we didn't actually get that much time to spend in it, but there was so much information everywhere about, like history and stuff like that.
Okay, and your experiences?
A lot bigger than I thought it was gonna be.
Okay,
Like, I thought it was cool if they went like chronologically and the whole room kind of, like she said, like kind of bounced off each other.
okay. And what were your impressions?
I mean, yeah, it was very big, lots of information, and I just found it really interesting with all the different cultures. A lot of things that I didn't know before.
So so that would be an example of one of those cultural learning experiences, right? I know that a few of my students got together and they went to an Armenian restaurant over in downtown St. Paul. And I've been there myself, so I know how the owners are. So they got a cultural experience when they went to that restaurant. So so some of those cultural learning events could be things like that. Also, when just walking up the halls, I saw a number of activities right here on campus that could be those community learning events as well. And so, so if you can find those yourself, and if you're having difficulties, I'm your resource for those things. All right. Yes, ma'am.
So the community learning events count towards the Z-Tag too, or are those just for the Z-Tag?
Those count towards the Z-Tag as well. And they are for the people who've already done the Z-Tag. Is that clear as mud? So I've been trying to work out how all these things fit together. So that's that. Trying to think logistically without going over. We'll go over the syllabus again on Wednesday in great detail and talk about specific dates and times and the kinds of things that I expect from you. I will say that also in terms of off-campus stuff, we will have a cultural engagement on a Sunday. We will so we'll have a cultural engagement on a Sunday, and so I'll make sure that you know ahead of time what Sunday that is, so we can all participate together. And you'll see that in the syllabus. And again, I want to make sure that people have rides, we have all that stuff covered. So we may do a list to make sure people have signed up and are able to do that. So there is that. So I obviously have the Moodle, I have, my notes, and I have some things that I would like to kind of talk about and have us discuss in the course of this class. But I'm also interested in what were some of the things you were hoping we might talk about in class? What were some of the things you were hoping? You signed up for this class, you had a decent idea of what we were going to cover. What were some of the things you were hoping we would cover? Or what did you think we would cover? Some of that stuff on my iPad. What were some of the things you were hoping we would cover? Yes, ma'am.
I thought maybe we wanted to talk about kind of what we as teachers are expected to act like in the classroom and how we're treating our students and things like that.
So, okay. So how we would treat our students and how we're supposed to act as teachers. Okay. Other folks, this is not working. Other folks, yes, ma'am.
Can do the history of some of the minority groups in Minnesota and school
Okay.
system, and kind of understanding or looking at cultural differences that may arise in the context of teaching.
What else? What people hoping we might talk about or thinking we might talk about?
I think, like, our current contemporary, you'd say racial issues that have been highlighted, and like what practical steps can be taken. So, I don't know.
What practical steps can we take to continue, to fight, to?
All right, it's a creative society that like, I don't know if equality is certainly there a lot, but promotes, I don't know, it's an equal opportunity and in a Christ-like manner especially. Because you hear a lot from different perspectives, but like as believers, like what are we called to do? What is that supposed to look like?
Yes, sir.
I think it'd be interesting to learn about some of the social policies that you haven't heard about. I just took a class where we learned about redlining and housing and separation, and the video we watched about the Brown versus Board of Education, that there were like still some things done after that.
Yeah.
That didn't necessarily promote equality, so I learned about some of the social policies that you don't know about.
Yes, sir.
How do I learn how, like, if a student asks you, like, about, like, these kind of issues, how to approach it and not seem like you're trying to, like, preach to them, but also approach it in a way that's, like, any culture can understand what you're trying to get across.
Okay. Yeah, that's good, that's important. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
I think it'd be interesting to talk about educational disparity with different areas in the United States.
Anyone else? Anyone else? All right. So what things did you think, were you hoping we would not talk about? What were the things you're like, oh man, if I hear this one more time from one more professor, I'm out of here? Yes.
I was hoping there would be just an emphasis on like the problem without looking at solutions. So having, looking at the problems in order to find a solution.
Okay. Folks, anything else? You're like, please don't talk about this. If I hear it one more time.
I think the emphasis on, like, one perspective. We always get, like, the history textbook, like, the two awful perspective, we don't usually get, like, the other half of the story.
There's a guy named Paul Hardy. Has anyone ever heard of that guy? So go to YouTube, look him up. He had a program called The Other Half of the Story. So you would tell one half before a commercial break, and you tell the other half after a commercial break. So yeah, so needing more than one perspective. Anything else?
White guilt.
White guilt. You do not want to hear about white guilt. Can you explain that a little bit? What is that?
Like white ancestors, like I don't, like you should feel guilty now because of what your ancestors did.
Okay.
And like shame on you and like I don't know.
No,
Not,
you do
not
know.
providing any freedom, I guess, and forgiveness and
Yeah, so this whole white guilt or white blame, I think the guilt is a response to the blame more so than anything else. Anything else you do not want to talk about or you hope you don't talk
All right, then let's go for it. All right, so what is the most valuable, non-renewable resource on the planet? What is the most valuable, non-renewable resource on the planet?
I was gonna say time, but you have human soul written there, so.
You. You're absolutely right. I gave it away, and I don't. But I don't know if you've noticed, but when you did your quiz, was I trying to trick you in the quiz? No. I'm not that teacher, right? So my job is not to trick you. I'm going to give you everything you need to be successful. And if you're not successful, whose fault is it? It's not mine, right? So yeah, no, the most valuable, non-renewable resource is the human soul. Kingdoms have been built to capture and harness the human soul. Products are designed to get humans to dedicate their lives to that particular product. Our systems of commerce rely on people's giving of this resource to their product. So the human soul, the most valuable, non-renewable resource on the planet. So, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow, but Genesis gives us, I get this idea of this human soul from Genesis. And Genesis 1 says something very interesting. Genesis 1 says, let us create man in our image. Male and female, he created them. And people are made in what? What are we created in? The image of God. So God said, let us make man in our image. And he created male and female, he created them. So what is God? He's a creator. Anybody touched him? Anybody taking a picture with him? A little selfie? What is God? What is he? What is God? He's a spirit. So when he said, let us make man in our image, he was first talking about the spirit. So human beings are spirit. And then in Genesis 2, what does he say? What happens in Genesis 2? He takes what? Clay. And what does he do to that clay? He forms a body and he what? Breathe the breath of life. So first we are born spirit. And then we get a body. And when those two things are in concert, we have the human soul. We have the human soul. So part of our job as teachers is to secure for our students their human soul. That's our primary responsibility. Now, there are tools that we can use to do that, but we're to protect this soul. Because there are things that are driving the body and the spirit apart from each other. Some of those things we will call racism. Some of those things we'll call sexism. Lookism. Bullying. These are all things that are designed to separate the body from the spirit. Now, the interesting thing is, as these things are attacking the human soul, there becomes a little crack in the soul. And when those things get separated, the body becomes a thing. And the spirit becomes powerless. I saw this with my grandmother. So when my grandmother passed, we have this this cultural thing that we do, where we get this big shiny box. And it's just a pretty box. It's got pearl inlay and gold eagle claws on the corners and that kind of stuff. And they laid my grandmother out in the box. Now, the funny thing is, that was not my grandmother's outfit, and she would never do her makeup like that. And that certainly was not her favorite wig. But she's laying in the box. And people would come up to my grandmother, and they would pass notes to my grandmother while she's in the box. Some people would say things to my grandmother while she was in the box. And you have that one creepy family member that wants to touch the body. Like, get away from me, grandma, right? Now, all these people are trying to interact with my grandmother, but what's happening or what's not happening? How's my grandmother responding? She's not. Why? The house is there, but there's nobody home, right? So without her spirit, she has become a thing. Now, it's funny, afterwards, we have this thing called the repast dinner. And so everybody would bring their spaghetti, and some of the spaghetti is nasty. You do not eat everybody's spaghetti. I'm just telling you right now. Just some people, you go, yeah, right? But anyway, so people are eating spaghetti dinners. They get the photo album out. They're going through, flipping through photos, telling stories about my grandmother, telling lies about my grandmother, you know, and we're laughing and joking. And it feels like my grandmother is there. It feels like her spirit is there. But what's the problem? She can't animate anything. And so when the spirit is without the body, the spirit becomes powerless. Becomes powerless. Now, one of the things that starts to happen when bullying and racism and lookism, and when I say lookism, what am I talking about? Discrimination based because somebody don't look like the pretty people. And the funny thing is, the pretty people change every week. Because pretty when I was in high school is not pretty when kids are in high school today. It's just interesting, right? So that idea of lookism. So there's the spirit and there's the body. And when the body is devoid of the spirit, then the body becomes a thing and the spirit becomes powerless. Right? And when that starts to happen, there comes this thing called the void. Sorry. Called the void. And the void is waiting. So the void starts to form, and there's a monster that is waiting to enter the void. And do you know what that monster is called? Free market capitalism. I don't know if you've ever watched, anybody watch commercials? Because, you know, now you can almost choose not to watch commercials if you don't want to, right? But I don't know if you've noticed, but every commercial that I've seen makes me feel worse about myself without their product. You know, having relationship problems. So if I just spray this cologne, I'll have indiscriminate women running towards me. If I drive this car, I'll be the coolest, whatever. If I just use some Pantene Pro V, all my problems will be solved, right? All these commercials, although I will say that there are some commercials that are designed to make you feel better about yourself. And typically they're the herpes commercials. I don't know if you've
But the herpes commercials, people are living life and they're enjoying, but they got herpes. Anyway, let me get back to teaching, right?
So free market capitalism benefits from this crack in the human soul because it says what? What does capitalism say? We'll fix you. Buy this and we'll fix you. Get this and we'll fix you. And the more problems you have, the more stuff they say you need. But what do we know about that? Does it work? No, it doesn't work. We've had avatars that have taught us that that doesn't work. Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Robin Williams. These were individuals who had everything you're supposed to have that says that you should be happy and be successful. But what did they have? A hole in their soul. And so we know what can bring these two things together. We know what can make it whole. We know what can fill that void. But how do we say that in a classroom with people who may not be believers? Our job is to reunite the human soul. I remember, and I think it's interesting, they called it a mini-series because it was on for 2 weeks for 3 hours a night on primetime TV, but they called it a mini-series, right? And it was based on this mini-series I saw when I was in elementary school, and it was based on a book called Roots by Alex Haley. And in the opening scene of this television show, and it was funny because my parents wanted us to see it, but they didn't want us to see it at the same time. And so my mother would say goofy stuff like cover your eyes at this part. And so we would cover our eyes like this. Any of your parents ever do something like that? Yeah, cover your eyes. Okay. All right. So at any rate, so the opening scene, they have LeVar Burton. Does anyone know who LeVar Burton is? The Reading Rainbow guy. You know, I can go twice as high. Take a look. It's in a book. A Reading Rainbow. Anybody remember? No. Okay. So the Reading Rainbow guy, right? So Star Trek, Geordi LaForge, the dude with the eye. Yeah. So they have him. He's a young man in this thing, and so they had kidnapped these people from West Africa, and they're now in the West Indies conditioning them for the system of slavery. And so they have LeVar Burton up in these stirrup things, and they have a guy with this nasty looking whip thing, and he hits him on the back. And LeVar goes, ah! And the guy says, "What is your name?" And he says proudly, "My name is Kunta Kinte." And the guy says, "No, it's not, it's Toby." And LeVar Burton goes, eh! And so the guy says, "What is your name?" And he says, "My name is Kunta Kinte." And he says, "No, it's not, it's Toby." Right? So this goes on for a long time. And so now that the dude is tired, LeVar Burton is just hanging on with his dear life, and a guy draws back with one of his last things as hard as he could, and he goes, and LeVar Burton goes, ah! And the man says, "What is your name?" And LeVar Burton says, "My name is Toby." What happened? What happened? What happened? Broke his soul, right? And he broke his spirit so that he could become a thing. And what was the thing called? A slave. So he could become a slave. Now, men, Double check my time. I wasn't always who you see standing before you. I mean, I've always been this good looking, but so as dudes, we have like these bizarre rites of passage, and I want to tell you. So, and you'll know more about me probably than you want to know. My dad was a pastor, so I knew better. But it's just some things. It's just a rite of passage for dudes. You're supposed to do this as a dude, right? And one of them was going to strip clubs. That was one of the things. There was a rite of passage for all the dudes I was hanging out with because they all did it. And we were like, oh, we're going to go to the strip bar. Oh, right. So we all excited and whatnot. And we good. The ladies going to take off their clothes. Oh, right. So I lived in a city called St. Louis. And across the river in St. Louis is a place called East St. Louis. And in East St. Louis, if you can afford it, you can do it. Whatever it is. If you can afford it, you can do it. So I was, the rite of passage, right? So my friend was coming into town. I was like, dude, let's go do this. Let's go do this thing over here. Because they were wild and crazy over there. Ooh, crazy, right? So we get over there and so we pay a little money. We sit down, get some extra ones because we were cheap. We didn't have like, you see them on TV. They make it rain in the video. Y'all with? Okay. So we're up in there and like, and I got my buddy and we're like, oh yeah, buddy, we're gonna see the thing. Whoa, can't wait to see the thing, right? And so the lady come out and she's on the. And then she take off her top. We're like, oh, look at that! Right? And then this was one of those places where they show everything. So she gets down to the bottom part. And then my friend and I, we look at each other and we're like, oh my. The woman had an incision from here to here. Guess what? That was somebody's mama. And my friend and I, we looked at each other and went, oh my goodness, what are we doing? What are we doing? These women are somebody's daughters, somebody's sisters, somebody's aunts, somebody's mama. We looked at each other, we packed up our stuff, we left, we didn't even talk, we haven't talked about it since. What compelled us to be able to even participate in that activity? Were we raising the human soul? Were we raising humanity by going to that place? Was that our objective? And what was our objective? To see some things. And what do we call those things? What do they call? What do people call the things that's on the? What do they call those things? What do they call them? They call them strippers. They don't have names. They call them strippers. And when we turn people from what God said, which was these human beings, when we turn them into things, then we can brutalize them. Then we don't have to treat them as God sees them. We can treat them however we want to treat them. Anybody know exactly right now, do you have a screwdriver at your house? Maybe not here on campus, but at home. Where is that screwdriver? How's it doing? When's the last time, like, you, I don't know, washed or polished Never. Why? You don't care. You use it, and when you're done using it, what do? Toss it back in the drawer, in the bucket, in the can, in the hardware. But it's funny we don't do that with diamonds. Anybody have a diamond? Ever had a diamond? No? She's like, is it, what kind of diamond is it? No, I mean, is it? Oh! Right? No, what do we do with stuff that we care about? That's my point. It's not about the diamond. Do we know where it is, the stuff that we care about? Yeah. Do we keep it in a safe place? Yeah, we do. And so when we have our students, guess who they are? They are that diamond. They are that valuable thing that we need to be mindful of. Because this, we can't renew that. We can't renew that. And so if we're not careful, these things become, these bodies become things. Good. I got 10 minutes. So we talked. So are people familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And so Maslow says, what's the basic? What's the lowest one? What does Maslow say is the base? Is the base? He says it's base. Yes, he does say it's the basic needs. And so what are those things? Food, shelter, water, so forth and so on. And then what does he say is next? Safety. And we can break that into two categories: physical safety and emotional safety. And then next is
goals and passions and things that you can get when you feel safe.
Yep. So let's put goals, and I would also say relationships, right? Those kinds of things. And then at the top is self-actualization. And people get that kind of confused. But I didn't want to spend a lot of time talking about Maslow because I'm going to talk about Maslow's teacher, a guy by the name of Alfred Adler, Adler. And Adler says that although Maslow talked about these 5 or 7 hierarchical needs, what Adler said was that there are 3 basic needs. There are 3 basic needs. And people are striving for this idea of significance, belonging, and safety. The people are looking for significance, belonging, and safety. Significance says that I'm a person with purpose and power. I was born for a reason. I have a reason to exist. And whether that reason is something that I make up myself or something that I get from God, I have a reason to exist. I have significance. I'm a person with purpose and power. Belonging says that I am in relationships with people who understand my significance and my power. I'm in relationships with people who understand my significance and my power. And safety says that I'm physically, mentally, and emotionally safe enough to be in those relationships with people who understand my purpose and my power. Right? So typically when we're engaging with students, some of the cracks in their soul come because of one of these 3 things as being exploited as being a problem, where they're being sold that they miss one of these things. You are not significant, so buy my product and it will make you significant. It will give you power. It will give you influence, right? you don't belong to anyone or in any communities or whatnot, join this, wear these pants, join the Michael Kors crowd by having this, anybody know Michael Kors? Okay. Safety, you don't have so forth and so on and so on, right? So those things are important. And with that, I think I'm going to stop right there. I think that's enough for today. If you did capture those other things down, you wrote those other things down, we will address those on Wednesday. All right? Cool. Any questions so far? Did any of this stuff, was this like really bizarre stuff? Does it make sense? Can you see how this could be helpful as a teacher? Yeah. Because our students are starving for this. And as teachers, who do we work for? And that's a trick question. I don't ask many trick questions, but I will tell you before I ask you a trick question. That's a trick question. Who do we work for? Who do you think we work for? That's the trick. You work for their parents. I sent my kid to school because I can't teach them something I don't know. So I want them to go to your school so you can teach them as if I was there. But if you don't know me, can you teach them like me? No. But we'll talk about that on Wednesday. Thanks so much for a great class. I'll see you on Wednesday. That book yet? That class? I'm trying to find the class so I can read it. Always second one.
So should I just send the same hour sheet to you that I will?
Yeah, and what will end up happening is, since you're taking the Z-Tag,
Okay, got it, thank you.
yes.
Oh, I was just curious, so like, for community learning, so, are there other like this Ministry on campus where we go down to downtown Minneapolis, I don't know if you know where Augie's game center is, and it's like street learning, so it's more like relational, like talking to people, hear their story, that sort of thing. Will that count towards hours?
Yeah.
That sort of thing? And second question. For the online quiz, I was a little bit confused, like I took it this morning, and it was like the exact same questions you gave us, and so I took a note on those, and I used my notes and stuff like that. Is it- I didn't know if like that was what you were expecting, if it was close note, like if it's a quiz like that, is it open note?
Yeah, we were like,
Okay, that's what I'm interested. So,
It was open everything. That's why I don't want to. So again, I'm not trying to trick anybody. So
like there's somebody service.
if you need resources to get the information, that's exactly what you do.
Okay.
So,
all right, thank you.
no problem. Yes, ma'am.
For the community learning experiences, is there like an amount of time or a number of events that we have to go to?
Yeah, I think there's 4 events, and I have in the syllabus.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
And that'll be part of the 30 hours and the rest we just do to get up to the 3? Is that right? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Is it okay if we go to like other church services in like in Spanish or other cultures and stuff? Is that always work?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Cool, awesome. I look forward to this class. Yay! It's great. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
Why is my phone not taking a picture?
Why is my phone not taking a picture? So let's do this. All right, context, culture, human soul, Maslow and Adler. We didn't get to the carrot of culture or the paradigm. Look at solutions, get more than one perspective. We don't want to talk about white blame or guilt. Talk about educational disparities, how do we act as teachers, history of minority groups, current racial groups, social ramifications, and then diversity, equity, and conclusion, triad. All right. And with that, we're going to shut it down.